Veteran director James Gunn may have just caused the fall of the MCU as Superman becomes the most anticipated film for viewers in 2025. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. It has been quite a while since we have seen this beautiful sight. Although unsteady, James Gunn's DCU slowly and steadily found a rhythm, and this rhythm has now gotten the people hyped up for this year's cinema. 2024 was not the best year for Hollywood. From some high disappointments to some surprising successes, it was a weird year for movies and box office collections in general. However, people are really excited about 2025, and none more so than James Gunn. Back in 2022, Gunn was announced as the co-head of DC Studios alongside Peter Safran after Zack Snyder's outing from the DCU. Soon, it was announced that Gunn himself would be directing a Superman movie for his DCU. From rumors and fan casting of actors for the role of Superman, David Corenswet was announced as the new Man of Steel, and the world waited in anticipation. There wasn't much buzz at that time. However, as more teasers and promotional photos began to be released, people realized that James Gunn might be onto something grand here. The release of the teaser trailer was the tipping point as it reached millions of people in a matter of minutes, and Superman's anticipation took flight. Well, as per IMDb users, a list was created showing the top 10 most anticipated films in 2025. It has been quite a while since we have seen a DC project sitting on the top like a king. If you look carefully, you will notice that there are 3 MCU movies on the list. Gunn's Superman managed to create a hype that is far greater than some of the greater MCU films, and that is a feat in itself. Well, the world is excited, and for all the right reasons too. From a fantastic musical score to some stellar acting by David Corenswet, James Gunn has declared an all-out war against the superhero genre. It was in 2013 when Snyder ventured into DC characters and directed and released his iconic film Man of Steel. Starring Henry Cavill in the lead role, the film was quite a controversial take on the character, since this Superman was forced to get his hands dirty. Although everyone is entitled to their opinion, and Snyder had a justified view for his take on the role, a majority of people disagreed with him, including Warner Brothers and DC. Well, in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Snyder revealed that he wanted characters that were actually mortal with superhuman powers. His statements were, like his films, quite controversial. "I never looked at it as the job. Oh, I'm the architect of DC. I need to create entertainment for DC that sells toys, and that is for the masses and fun for everyone. I didn't care about that. I like Batman, I like Superman, I wanted to make something cool. You picked the wrong guy if you wanted a product." Well, Snyder's reign over the DCU was not the most impressive for some, but it was surely entertaining and controversial at times. Snyder did set a benchmark with his movies that James Gunn will have to break with Superman. Starring David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan in the lead roles, Gunn is all geared up for the release of his upcoming film, and so are the fans. James Gunn's Superman will be released in theaters on July 11th, 2025 across the U.S. Prior to helming big-budget superhero flicks, James Gunn faced his biggest challenge in one indie superhero movie. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe, and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. The MCU has a history of hiring relatively unknown directors for its movies, which seemingly reflects the studio's adamancy to control its filmmakers. But this wasn't the case with James Gunn, who was brought on board to helm a movie about Guardians of the Galaxy, which, like Gunn, was relatively unknown in the mainstream landscape. While the scale of the movie was miles above Gunn's indie superhero flick, surprisingly, the director was much more comfortable filming the huge-budget Marvel movie. In contrast to the MCU's alleged controlling approach, James Gunn had total creative freedom under Kevin Feige's leadership from the get-go. Although this might have to do with the Guardians' relatively unknown status in the mainstream landscape, Gunn succeeded in transforming them into household names, thus kickstarting his dominance in the CBM scene. Moreover, the MCU didn't shy away from giving the film a massive budget of $170 million. Still, despite the huge scale of Guardians of the Galaxy, which was uncharted territory for the director up to that point, the challenge was relatively easier than that of Super, which he deemed harrowing for its short window via Collider. We had to do like 50 setups a day, so it was just a harrowing, tough experience. And this is difficult, but it's because it's over such a long period of time. But on a day-to-day basis, it's actually a lot more. Using the word easy is not the greatest thing, but yeah, it's easier because you do have more time for the setups, you have more time for planning. Considering the director has continued to deliver critical and commercial hits with his superhero flicks since then, it's safe to assume that the adequate window for production is responsible for his consistent track record. Under his regime, Gunn is giving writers an adequate window to come up with the best storyline, which isn't surprising given his stature as a writer-director. Moreover, instead of following Marvel's approach, Gunn has been adamant about prioritizing writers, who are set to be the cornerstone of the new DCU, as no project will move forward without a finished script via Collider. There's no set timeline for anything. The one thing that I've tried to make clear to people from the beginning, in the way that I hope we're different, is that everything in DC is going to be based on the writers. Given how he has continued to mold himself to different challenges throughout his career, whether it be Super, Guardians, or the Suicide Squad, one can't help but admire Gunn's perseverance as a filmmaker. That had been a trend in some of its predecessors. Welcome to Stats In. If you're just joining us, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications bell for more video. There are some things that are going to set the DCU apart from the MCU that fans are pretty familiar with. To begin with, the Marvel Cinematic Universe was dealing with B-tier characters when it was forming the Avengers, and so it was important to show the origin stories of Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America. However, when it comes to characters like Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman, the DC Universe can be forgiven for foregoing their origin stories altogether, given that they are so well known as characters that retreading them would essentially be an extended exercise in Maid and Butler dialogue. This is something that James Gunn, too, believes, given that he has decided to not go ahead with Batman's origin story as a film in the DCU. Even Christopher Nolan, with his Batman trilogy, decided to retread the origin story of the Bat of Gotham, which might not have been necessary, but it was still a great movie nonetheless. However, Gunn, like Reeves, seems to have a different idea about what the Batman film for the DCU needs to be. When James Gunn first announced Brave and the Bold, it was made clear to the audience that Batman's Robin would be Damian Wayne, which would mean that Batman's first film in the DCU would be far from an origin story. Having Damian Wayne as his Robin would require a lot of Batman's mythology to be in place, such as the League of Assassins and the slew of Robins that Bruce had before Damian. James Gunn's DCU, as is the case with Superman, will probably forego origin stories for popular characters, which would allow the studio to give the universe the Star Wars-esque vibe that it is going for, distinguishing it from the MCU